Welcome to Dear Rach and Soph, or perhaps today I should say Dear Soph and Rach. Let's change it up. Dear
Yes,
Soph
Rach
and
and
Rach.
Rach.
Because I'm Sophie Green and I'm here with my dear friend.
Rachel Johns, hello.
Hello, Rachel. How are you? That looks like is that a Diet Coke?
This is a Diet Coke, yep.
Yeah, on brand.
Having my DC, you know?
But not with the Diet Coke top on.
No,
As
no, I haven't got the
people,
fancy top today for those people,
yeah. Those
missing
of
it.
you who have seen an episode before this one, hopefully I've posted them vaguely enough.
Yeah, otherwise they'll be like, what? Is he talking
Otherwise,
about?
stand by. You'll see it in the future.
Yes, exciting.
Now, Rach, at the time we're talking, you are preparing to fly to New Zealand for the Romance Writers of New Zealand conference. Now, I've been listening to the podcast Fated Mates, and I know that one of the hosts
Oh,
will
yeah,
be
Sarah
at that,
McLean.
and she's going to be in Australia as well. Now, you've just told me that you are presenting the keynote, and in Australia, the keynote,
One of the keynotes.
one of the keynotes. Oh, sorry.
Sarah McLean will be doing another, and there's a couple of other authors as
Well,
well.
I think yours is the only one that counts, but
Oh,
you said that what you've been used to in Australia is 30 minutes, and then you've just realized it's an hour.
yeah, well, I realized the other day because I've been writing notes and stuff for a while and that, but this week, so last week, I was like, okay, this is where I'm really gonna dedicate, to getting it all down, so I can then have time to, make sure I go over it and stuff. And yeah, in Australia, we always have half an hour, so I just assumed I'd be half an hour. And then luckily, I looked at the New Zealand writers, Romance Writers New Zealand website, and it's an hour. But I can talk, so I have written. This is
You're
interesting.
also doing different sorts of writing though. So
True. Well, I've written 6,000 words so far, and that is 26 minutes. But yeah, it is different. You're right, because I wrote that in 2 days, and for me, that would be a pretty good word count on my book,
yeah.
because I probably, for me, 2,000 words is a good day. I reach that a couple of times a week, but more likely it's between 1,500 and 2,000. So yeah, I definitely write this faster. Yeah.
But also want to acknowledge that at the time you're writing the 6,000 words for the keynote, you are writing a new novel. You are also writing Mount Merryglen, and you are preparing to co-write with Mercedes Mercier and doing some other things. So look, I'm used to gear changing and writing because I write about country music, and I'm also
Yeah.
writing things like blurbs at work, and I'm also writing a novel, but not as
No, I
intensively.
should be asking you for all the tips.
No, but it's
So,
my output is not as intensive as
well,
it's currently proving.
I will say that I can't, I think, I don't never say can't because, we don't like that word probably here, I reckon. But I have I compartmentalize stuff, and I would prefer to only focus on one thing of writing at a time kind of thing, or maximum two. So like so far for the last month or so, I've been doing my new novel called Someone Else's Fortune. And I read about 32,000 words of that in July. But then I was also once a week writing my Mount Berry serial. So for anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, I've been writing a fiction serial on Substack, about 1,000 to 1,500 words a week, which Sophie has lovely copy edited for me each week. And I can manage just about two things, but my head is spinning at the moment, so I've got itchy back here. So if you're wondering why I'm doing, yoga in the middle of if anyone's watching, that's why. My head's spinning at the moment because yeah, I've had this keynote in my head thinking that I've got to get it done. I've got the book due at the end of December. I've got the co-writing that I need to start doing again with Mercedes soon, and that plot kind of in my head. So I think I'm reaching my limit. So that's why last week I was like, okay, I'm just starting to prep for New Zealand, putting Someone Else's Fortune away until I get back. And it'll be announced, but I'm pausing Mount Merryglen for a few months because I need to focus on the other two novels. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And I think your readers will be fine with that actually, because
I hope so.
it's a treat to have the monthly episodes, weekly, God, what I'm saying, weekly
If it
episodes.
was monthly, I could maybe handle it, but I feel like it's a little bit cheeky to ask people to pay a paid subscription for once a month. But Sophie, you make me like I was thinking this today. Just actually, it's interesting that you asked about this because, as you said, you do lots of things constantly. You're writing for work,
Mhm.
non-fiction things, and also I'm getting pitches and things to
Mm.
marketing people, and a lot of emails about discussing, upcoming books and all that. And then you're writing your own novel, which I know you're back in writing zone for
Mm.
that. And I just finished reading your novel last night. That's not the one novel you're writing now. Just letting you know, I didn't finish reading the one you're writing now because you haven't finished writing it, I don't think.
Right.
But that would be quite miraculous.
Hey, maybe you could write it for me.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice? No, I need someone to write mine. Never mind.
We'll swap.
But I'm thinking like, yeah, I mean, I'm quite in awe that you do like quite a short amount of your writing, like or you do your fiction writing in short sprints,
Yeah.
right? And then you also said you do a lot of country music writing and interviews as well. So anyway, I'm going to be asking you about that soon. So we've got a whole episode on your writing coming up and your book. But yeah, I am in awe, just want to say.
Likewise, Rachel. So I think it's a mutual appreciation society. And also for those who, at the time this comes out, the Lucky Sisters will not be out, but I read an early review that you sent me from a trade publication, shall we say, and it was brilliant. Which is not a surprise, but I am so excited to read.
Well, you never guarantee or expect stuff, do you? You have no idea how your book is going to be. And just because one person says something nice, it doesn't mean other people all will love it, but it is nice the first review to be quite good.
Yeah, particularly when you're doing standalone stories, and it's also not necessarily any kind of story that your readers have seen before. So yeah, can't wait to read it. So our guest for today has entered the waiting room.
I was thinking it's quite because I know some of our questions that we're talking about this guest, which you're going to announce in a minute, is different types of writing, and
yeah.
Right. So that was I don't know if you planned that.
I did.
It's kind of a good lead in to asking our guest all the different writing styles that she's done.
I'm going to take it as proof of what I've known for a long time as a yoga teacher, which is that sometimes I just sense things are coming up and I need to express them in the class, and I've shifted and changed to teach something else, and someone will have needed that exact thing.
Yeah.
Subconsciously introduce the subject of different types of writing, and that's what we're going to talk to our guest about in part. So our guest is Holly Brunnbauer, who is a multi-award-winning emerging fiction author with numerous accolades in writing competitions across Australia, New Zealand, and the US. Holly writes stories filled with heart, humour, and hijinks. Her signature style includes commercial voice, quirky cast, and putting the com in rom-com. She first caught the writing bug via blogging and later transitioned into copywriting. Holly is now a sought-after virtual assistant for published and aspiring authors. She's based in rural Victoria. She has a cheeky pug and an off-grid. She's planning and building an off-grid country home, and the outdoors is her happy place. So her novel is What Did I Miss? I'm holding it up for those of you who are listening rather than watching.
I've got an advanced reading copy. I can't see. I'll just go back so I can see you.
Oh, yeah, so you can see the difference.
The proper copy.
Yes, I have the proper copy. Rach has an early copy. And so briefly, the blurb is married young, finally divorced, turning 30. Michaela has many regrets, a Chico roll impulse buy, not visiting the Big Pineapple, and marrying her high school dud.
I think a Chico roll buy is a regret always. I've never had one, but my husband likes them. And every time he buys one on a road trip, I think that is the most disgusting thing I have ever seen.
See, therefore, the specific detail in that is relatable.
It is.
That's why it's good to be specific. Yeah. So now newly divorced, determined to hold on to her independence and facing the big 3-0, Michaela makes a list of all the things she missed out on while her friends were single and running amok in their 20s. But when her one-night stand turns up again and a revenge plot on her ex spirals out of control, she has to decide if some things are worth missing. And if Michaela can't sort herself out before her birthday, she might face the biggest regret of her life. A fresh and feisty romantic comedy about what happens when you meet someone special before truly knowing yourself. So I'm going to put us on pause and we'll bring Holly in and we'll ask her all about it.
Awesome.
Rachel, we have a lovely guest, Holly Brunnbauer, and I'm going to hold up the book again just in case people miss.
And I'll hold up the arc.
What did I miss? Yes, so Holly, there are two versions. We have Rachel's got the arc and I've got the finished one here, and it's a lovely book. And Holly is a very accomplished writer. So this is technically your first book, Holly, but it doesn't read like you're a beginner. So
no, I agree, definitely.
Hello. We're just talking, but hello, welcome.
Hello. I'm a bit behind, sorry, Holly, because I've got a 50 million.
I know. I've seen your TBR. I'm scared that you're going to get crushed by it.
Well, I know. I just finished Sophie's last night, and I'm interviewing her straight after this about it. So that's how far behind I am. But I just started this afternoon, and I said to Sophie, I was reading it when she came in. I was laughing and stuff. So I'm already annoyed that I haven't managed to read it yet because I'm loving it so far. So yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Well,
that's
congratulations.
Yeah, the characters are immediately vivid, which is so great when you start reading a novel and then you just feel like the characters are there and they're fully drawn, but you don't know them yet. But you get that there are many dimensions.
That's so true. And the first line, I think we talked a couple of weeks ago to someone, and it might not be out yet, but about, I think there was a question. I'm like so confused whether this is something I'm making up from because question from somewhere else or whatever. But I think so. If you like nod if you think that sounds familiar. But like someone asked us about, you know, when you're submitting your first book, it's really hard. Like the first page, you know, they say you've only got a page. And we actually said, or I said something like, I think if you've got it the first line good, like the first sentence is a killer, then you can go a little bit into, not that I think you do, I think it all goes straight there, but I want to say I love your first sentence, which is, the day after Michaela's divorce is official, she points to a stranger at the bar and says, that's the guy I want to go home with. So we're immediately in the action. We immediately know she's just divorced and stuff. So yeah, I think that's a really strong first line.
Oh, thank you. And I mean, it obviously, like I tweaked it over time, but that was always how it started.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I'd always learned that like the first line's so important, but I feel like the first line just comes to, I don't know if this happens for you too, but it just comes to me usually in the shower. That's where my best
which is very annoying because there's no pen and paper in the shower.
I know. Every time we have conversations like this, I think I need to order that. Apparently there's stuff.
The waterproof.
Shower, yes, because the showers are definitely the best place to
water,
and I can't start until I have that first line or how it's going to kind of go. And yeah, it may change. Well, I don't think most of mine change, but I really noticed that with the book that I'm writing now. I just was not sure how to start. And then I got a first line and I was off. So yeah.
Now the shower thing apparently is to do with negative ions. The negative ions kind of clear the energetic air around you. And so that whole idea of, and also I think humans on a primal level love the experience of water flowing over them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so there's something to do with negative ions, and that's why the shower is a place where a lot of people get ideas.
You know, I never think when I'm stuck, I should just go and have a shower. But
yeah. But Rachel, if you read some Jilly Cooper novels, you'll notice that when people have problems in a Jilly Cooper novel, there's no problem that be solved by shampooing one's hair or opening a bottle of champagn.
Well, I like that. That's
we are veering well away.
Yeah, sorry. And before, I just wanted to say, because we had a quick chat beforehand, so this episode will be about Holly's writing career and stuff, but she's also got some questions for Soph and I, so I'm super excited about that.
Yeah. But since we are talking about the novel, I think I'll keep us there, and then we're going to backtrack to how you came to write fiction. But how did you get the idea for What Did I Miss?
Yes. So it was inspired by one of my friends who had married and divorced her high school dud.
I love that. Instead of high school sweetheart. Love it.
Yes, we're allowed to call him that. And she just found herself suddenly single in her 30s. And I was just so fascinated by that. So she was now going to be jumping into the adult dating world for the very first time. So she had bypassed all those awkward experiences that we go through in our 20s, you know, when we're meeting people and we're out and about. And I was like, oh my goodness, you haven't done this and you haven't done that and you haven't done this. And then the idea came to me of how that book started. I could just see someone the day after their divorce and going to a bar, trying to awkwardly pick up a man because she wanted to see, is the grass greener? Because she'd been with one man her whole life. And, you know, after that sort of came out, I thought, what else could I put this poor woman through? And so I just messaged my friends in our group chat and said, if you found yourself suddenly single, what new experiences would you want to try?
Is that where the list came from?
Yes, yes.
So there is a list in the very early part of the book.
Yeah.
And
no regrets. Yeah. But the funny thing was the list, what they came up with was some really filthy answers.
Oh, really? So it didn't end up in here?
Oh, no. Well, the funny thing is, Rachel, that the list that I originally had before it was acquired was probably more on the saucy side. And then when I spoke to the publisher, she said, how do you feel about broadening the list? And I was like, that's a brilliant idea. Why didn't I think of that? And then so I ended up changing, like I took half the things off, added new things, but luckily they didn't tell me to take any of the sexy stuff out.
I was going to say, because that doesn't surprise me, right? Because as much as I love both my publishers, if you're listening, hello, that, like, I feel like, especially in traditional publishing, and Sophie's a publisher here too, so, you know, people seem quite conservative and really
Yes.
want to make sure that they're not going to offend anyone.
Yeah, and I totally
turn off.
understand that too,
Yeah.
because even in my mind, like in the back of my head, like when my friends came up with those suggestions, I was like, oh, I couldn't put that on my list if I wanted to be published by Big Five. Like I knew that in the back of my head.
I really want to know what some of these suggestions were.
Yeah, Holly, I've got to say, like, it's
I should publish the
You
original list. I should.
extra content.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, exactly. Oh,
In
great.
fact,
I love it. I love it.
Here's a content idea. Don't publish it all at once. Do one a day or one a week. Draw it out.
Oh, draw it out. I like that.
And then you could ask other people, you know, it's just to comment on what they think of that particular thing. Would they put it on their list? They were in the same situation.
Yes, yes. I do like asking people those questions. And at my launch, we did ask people if they would admit to one of them that was on there that was a bit cheeky. And then I gave them some spanking paddles.
Okay, well now we know what one of them is.
No, but it wasn't actually that. It was more that it was inspired by one of the scenes where there happens to be a paddle and some stuff in that scene. So unfortunately, one of those people had to get on a plane after my launch, and I was like, "Did you get stopped by security? Because that would have been hilarious."
That's hilarious.
Could have just said it was like a ping pong paddle.
Yeah. No, you could tell it was leather. It was black. It had a little like red love heart on it.
Okay, so it was a real type of
Yeah,
paddle.
yeah.
You went all out for your launch.
I did. I had so much fun. Oh my God.
Oh, I'm jealous that you're in Victoria, are you?
I am in Victoria. Yes. And my husband hired a Mustang. So there's a Mustang in my book. Spoiler alert, Rachel. So there's a vintage Mustang in there named Gertie, and he hired one for the weekend of my launch. So we drove there and had it parked out the front of the launch so people could have a photo. And it was just amazing.
Awesome.
Such a book boyfriend
I think
move.
I did see some like photos from your launch on Instagram, and I did think it looked pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was very cool. Very cool.
We love that attention to detail. Part of your husband and you with the paddles, I should say.
Obviously, your husband. This is not based on your own experience, then.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Even when he read it, he goes, "That's not me, is it?" And I said, "No."
Hey, the fact is, Reddit gives him points.
That's true. I did need him to proofread because, you know, I needed that extra set of eyes. By that point, I was like, I can't read it anymore. I can't see anything. I
understand that.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that Holly's still married to him would suggest that he's not a dud.
That's what I'm saying.
But so you said to Michaela, the inspiration for Michaela came from a friend of yours, but did the character come to you fully formed, or did you write your way into her?
Yeah, so my friend is not based on Michaela, and Michaela's not based on her. So I just want to, you know, make that really clear.
Yeah.
She absolutely did. When I wrote that first chapter, she just had this really strong voice. But then after that, so I put that aside because I was working on something else. So I had a good like 10 or 11 months of it percolating in my mind.
That's always good.
Which is great. And then I like to do a lot of character development. So I spent a good month getting to know my characters, and I knew Michaela, you know, backwards. I could tell you everything about her.
What kind of things do you do, like, as character work?
Yeah, so I'm a real visual person. So for me, I need to see their whole life visually. So I even go as far as like creating what would be in their wardrobe, like their clothes, but understanding why I pick each piece. So for example, Michaela, if she was going to wear bathers, she wears a one piece, you know, black swimming athletic one, because when she gets in the pool, she means business. She's not there to parade. She doesn't want to show off her hot bod. Like, she's an athlete. So that's why she would pick that. So I know, so every decision I make, even though they're visual, you know, there's micro decisions behind that make up this whole character. So I work off these sort of vibes before I start putting the words.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Oh.
Do you utilize a Pinterest board?
I don't use a Pinterest board. I've created this like 30-page document, and I shared it on my Substack recently for people because I was like, you can have this if you want it. But it's just, I put it all in there, and then I go and get it printed out, and I even get, you know, like the nice sort of like shiny glossy page at the start. I should sort of show similar.
Yes. So if people who are listening rather than viewing, you're missing out on this. You're going to have to find the video.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just showing everything. Yeah. So I go through all of that, and I want to know the whole story before I start. I know I think you're both discovery writers. You like the story to come to you.
No,
a little
I
bit
plan.
more.
Oh, you
plan.
plan, Sophie.
Yeah,
Okay.
But
I'm
I'm very curious because you obviously this is your debut novel.
Yes.
Except Holly just said she was working on something else, which I'm
so
intrigued
obviously
about,
it's not the first thing you wrote, which probably you didn't write as many things as I do because it took me 15 years. But like you must have like come up with this system over a few books. How did
So there was one more before What Did I
Wow.
Miss? My apprenticeship manuscript that I sent it to a couple of agents, and I got like 4 came back and said, I want to see the rest. 2 of them rejected it, and 2 did a bit of I really like your writing. Would you be willing to like make some changes? Sort of like, what is it called? A revise and resubmit.
Yeah.
And I was like, I had started What Did I Miss? And I said to them, I have actually started something new, and I think this is better.
Yeah.
I can't work on 2 projects at once. I'm going to keep going with
I know,
this.
either can I, and I'm happy
I
to at
know.
the moment.
And I was like, I'm actually going to work on this. Thank you so much. But I think if I'm going to have one go at being a debut, I think this would be a better shot. So I just put that in the
really
drawer.
wise. It's a hard thing to do. I can imagine, like when you do have that opportunity to revise and resubmit and see what happens.
Yeah,
decision to make, but a good one probably.
Maybe because I was so new to it, so I didn't really know that the opportunity might have been like quite a slim opportunity. But I also was like, it's a long game. Like if you're going to be in this career, you have to make right strategic moves, and you have to put a book out there that you can stand behind. And I was like, I think this is a book that I could stand behind, and I would feel so proud having my name on it. Whereas the other one, I was like, I don't know, guys. I don't know what I was doing. That was my first one, And
let's face it, it's very rare. I mean, hopefully, as I said, people don't have 15 years like I did, but I did start at 17, so But it's very rare that the first book is good enough to go out there.
Well, I do love that Holly has called it the apprenticeship manuscript.
I love that too. I think we all need apprenticeship. Yeah, exactly. But it's very tempting, especially now when there's so many options for publishing, like different, it's very tempting to say, but I've written this, I want it out there. So it's a hard thing to do, but I think more people probably should do it.
Yeah, and it can feel that way as though, but I've put so much time and energy. But like we don't expect people to go to uni the first day and then be a brain surgeon.
No, thank God. Yeah, exactly. It's so true.
It's the same thing with writing, isn't it?
But we're just for some reason we're very impatient with writing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you worked up to this by blogging because that was what you were doing first. So you did have a writing discipline, and I can relate to this because I was writing about country music for a long time as a blogger before I started writing fiction. And I've said several times that I think that knowing I was writing to an audience, because of course when you're blogging, you can see whether you've got people reading it or not. So knowing I was writing to people and that I had to articulate the experience of listening to music, which required some imagination and different ways of using language, was the best preparation for writing fiction, because it not only got me thinking about all those things, but also just into a discipline of writing. So I'm interested in your trajectory from blogging, like why you started blogging, what you were blogging about, how you went about it, and then at what point you decided to start writing fiction.
Yes. So my blog was called Motherhood Melbourne. So when I found out that I was expecting, I was like reading all the books, looking on the internet, watching every horror birth video I could find.
Oh my goodness.
Because I like to arm myself with information, so I was like, I'm ready for this. Let's go. But then, expectation didn't meet reality. I had a very traumatic birth, and then I had a baby that cried all the time. And I was just exhausted, and I wasn't loving it. Like everyone was like, you're gonna love this, and I was like, am I supposed to love being screamed at 24 hours? I don't know. Like who enjoys this? It's hard. Yeah. I got one of those babies. He's fine now. I love him. He's adorable. But I
had one. The first one wouldn't sleep at all. Didn't scream all day, but no sleep day and night. And feel your pain.
Yeah. And then I was following these women on Instagram. They were doing yoga for mums. I wasn't really doing the yoga. I just liked their content. And they asked me if I would answer some questions on their blog about motherhood. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. But I didn't say the things that, you're supposed to say, like, it's the best, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
I told
You
a
told the
story.
truth.
Yeah, basically told a story, about me crying at Kmart one night in the towel aisle for a couple of hours because I was exhausted
Aw.
and angry and just, at wit's end. And I felt really good after that. I was like, wow, that was really cathartic to write
Yeah.
that because I'd never written anything.
I was going to say, had you ever written before? So you didn't have
No.
ambition to like write a novel always, like half.
No,
This
never,
is
never,
my
never.
theory. I always say that there's I think that I've met two types of writers basically since meeting lots of writers, and there's those ones who have always wanted to write a book basically for as long as they could remember, and they've grown up wanting to be authors. And then there's the rest of us who came to writing through therapy, and it sounds like you very much did come to it through therapy.
Yeah.
Writing all those experiences was cathartic for you. I came to it through therapy too.
Yeah.
I wanted to write when I was a kid, but then I didn't think about it at all for many, many years. And then I was like, oh, I think I want to write about country music was what started it. But
Yeah. And then after I did that, I sort of thought, what if, and I wasn't thinking about me writing, I was actually like, what if I created a platform where other women, just everyday women, could share their story about motherhood, the real story. Like if they wanted to talk about something awful that happened with their pregnancy or birth or loss or postpartum or something, like not a celebrity, not an influencer, just an everyday person who could have their say and have that feeling that I had when I shared it. So I was like, why don't I create it? So I just taught myself how to create a blog, how to create a newsletter. And then one night I created my Instagram, and I was very new to Instagram at this time. And I asked 40 businesses, because it was Motherhood Melbourne. So I asked 40 Melbourne businesses that sold products or services to mums. I said, I have this graphic because I want to launch this website and tell people, invite women to come and share their stories. Will you share this on the same night at the same time so that we can all have this effect? And so I went from having like 30 followers to having 1,000 within 10 minutes.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That must have been amazing.
It was incredible. And then I had all these people. Luckily, I had my newsletter set up, which I didn't know what I was going to send. But then all these people joined the newsletter. And at that time, I hadn't told anyone in my real life what I was doing. So my husband was like, what's happening with your phone? Because my phone was going nuts and all the notifications were going off. And I was like,
I love it.
I started this little thing. And he goes, well, it doesn't sound very little. And the next day I had all these emails from businesses who wanted to work with me. And I had emails from PR companies inviting me to events. And the first event I went to was the Peppa Pig premiere.
Oh my goodness. That is hilarious.
It was so funny. And I sat behind Sophie Keisha. Do you know who Sophie Keisha is?
Yes.
Sophie Keisha. Sorry, I was thinking of a different last name. Yes.
The pajama lady.
Yeah. Well, so back then she was the young mummy. So I'm sitting behind her going to my husband, oh my God, that's the young mummy. And he's like, the young who? And I was like, shut up. That's cool. Pretend we know why we're here. But it actually changed my life overnight. So overnight I was like, okay, hold on, I can make money doing this. So I worked out how to monetize it, but still create the content that I wanted. So I expanded it to doing events and podcasts, and I had those sponsored from the start. And I made it up as I went, and I just built this amazing community of Melbourne mums who were all like me, who just didn't have really friends that had kids and stuff like that. So I wanted to do that stuff, but I worked out a way to be able to quit my day job and do it at home and be at home with my kids. So that's how I got into it.
That's amazing. Where did the fiction come in from there? Or have you another question first, Sophie?
No, I was more thinking about you really went for it, because the choice then could have been to think, oh, I don't know that I'm really ready for this, and maybe I don't want to write to all these people, and I've just started doing this. But instead you went, okay, let's go.
Yeah. And it was funny because at the time I wasn't sharing my name or my face because I worked at a corporate, 9 to 5, and I was embarrassed, that I was sharing personal details about how I was failing at motherhood. But then at one stage, someone like a businesswoman, she just tapped me on the shoulder and said, Holly, you got to show your face. You got to show your face. And I was like, okay. And that changed everything. Showing your face and people knowing your name changed everything. It just created this stronger connection. And then when you do the podcast and people hear your voice, even stronger.
That's a good thing. You know, when I think about now, we're all worried about, you know, AI taking over our careers, because, you know, it shows that readers and listeners, they want that connection with a real person, right?
They do. They want that human connection.
Positive to remember.
Yeah, it is, because there is a lot of fear-mongering going on about AI, but humans like humans.
They do.
Yeah. But yeah, so Holly.
Well, we like some humans, you know. Some are not so.
The fiction part of it. So when did you start doing that?
Okay, so it's New Year's Day. I always create these like big goals for myself. Like one year I was like, I'm going to run half a marathon, never having run in my life, and then just trained. Yeah, I just trained. I did the nutrition. I got tips off a runner like coach, and I did it. And then that year I just happened to say, I'm going to write a book. And I just thought, wow, surely how hard could that be?
I was there too. I remember that. I'm writing a keynote speech for Romance Writers New Zealand. I remember, and in there I've just written that, you know, I thought after trying for years of writing literary fiction, I'll just write a romance. Ills and Boone, how hard can it be?
I know. Famous last words, Rachel.
I know. That's a good title for a book. How hard can it be? That could be a next one. What did I mean? How hard can it be?
Yeah. I know you love collecting titles. If you want that one, you can have it.
A good one. Hey.
Do you know this was not the title of my book? My publisher came up with this. It was actually, because the list was different, it was called The Sexy Bucket List.
Oh, actually, I just saw that on your website.
Yeah.
Just, you know, that could be a title for a different sort of novel, Holly, if you wanted to branch out. Just saying.
I do like the what's it called? The current title. What did I miss? Sorry,
I do too.
Because I'm like, did I wrap? Yeah, I did see that, The Sexy Bucket List.
No, I like that title too. I think it tells you what the book is about, and it's less embarrassing to say when your kids' teachers say, "Oh, I heard you wrote a book. What's it called?"
True.
Especially because
less embarrassing for people who are writing, like, you know, not that we're all about reading whatever you want, obviously.
Yeah.
Some people are embarrassed to sit by the pool and read certain books. So, you know.
Yes.
Also have to say, Holly's comment then has a particular resonance because the character of Michaela is a teacher. So you could have been writing an all about a sexy bucket list for a teacher talking to teachers.
So there might be quite a few people that are listening who haven't written a book but have similar dreams to you. Think, oh, I really would like to write a book. So what did you do next?
So the next thing I did was try to do it on my own. So I started a story and I'd write the start, I'd write the end, and I couldn't work out what I was supposed to put in the middle, which of course, because I'd never learned how to write a book, you know, I'd read them, but you don't know the mechanics behind them. So after a few failed attempts, I was like, obviously I need to do a course. And then I enrolled into courses. And by the end of the third course, I had finished my apprenticeship manuscript. So that's what I did. Because now I was like, now I understand structure. Now I know that characters need motivations and goals. Who knew?
I know. This is stuff I wish they taught me at uni and they never did.
I know. And I was just blown away. I was like, oh, okay. And the 3-act structure and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I think doing that helped, and also having that accountability. And I liked the feedback. Even though the feedback at times put me in the fetal position, it made me a better writer. Because I remember I submitted a first chapter and I honestly, naively was like, this is so good. I'm going to get so much praise. And the tutor came back and she just like ripped through it. And I was in tears. But I got up off the floor and I was like, I'm going to write a better first chapter. Scratched every single word, went back over all the notes and was like, I'm doing this again. Pretend you did not see that first one. Here's my second attempt. And she was like, I could hear it because she did a video tutorial going through the feedback. I could hear it in her voice that it was so much better. And I was like, okay, all right, I'm learning. I'm going to get better.
That's part of the writing life, learning to take on feedback and, you know, to use it to make it better.
Yeah, and not be defensive, not be like, no, you're clearly wrong.
Yeah,
like,
you have no idea what you're talking about.
Holly, I'm curious what sort of genre the apprenticeship manuscript was.
Yeah.
So it was a rom-com, but funnily enough, I didn't know I was writing a rom-com.
Okay.
I thought I was writing a women's fiction / crime novel. And the tutor told me, Holly, this is a rom-com. And they kept telling me it was funny. And I was like, are you sure? Because I'm not a funny person.
I felt the same when they told me the other Bridget, which is stupid in hindsight, of course, rom-com was going to be marketed as a rom-com, because I'm like, but I'm not very funny.
Yeah. And it's weird. Yeah. Like people
Or
say,
I was thinking, is it funny enough? Like, I
Yes.
hadn't thought, yeah, you hadn't tried to put that in there.
yeah. So that's what I was doing. Like I didn't know genres.
Mm.
I didn't understand genre. I didn't even know that romance. I honestly did not know romance books always finished with either a happy ending or happy
For
for
now.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's
that blew my
interesting.
mind.
In your bio, it says putting the com in rom-com, and I wrote that down because I've had a chat with a few people. I went to Blush Festival earlier in the year, which is a film and book romance festival, and I was on a panel about rom-coms, and we were talking, like, I feel like a lot of books these days are marketed as a rom-com, but they're not necessarily a rom-com.
Yes, that annoys me.
Contemporary romance, and instead of, like, it's easy, historical romance, fantasy romance, right? But everything that's contemporary romance seems to be put under the rom-com banner, and we were like, there's a difference.
Yes.
So I love that you said you're putting the com in the rom-com, because I feel like in a rom-com, the romance has to be half kind of thing, and the comedy is also as much as the romance.
Yes. And thank you for saying that, because I'm someone who reads rom-coms for the comedy. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily pick up a contemporary romance
Yeah,
as
not
my
necessarily.
second choice.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
actually go to another book that's humorous, like, everyone on this train is a suspect.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, I like humor, or Ghost Cities. Like, I love, satire and comedy
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So I, as a rom-com reader, get really annoyed when a book is marketed as a rom-com and it's and I'm like, this isn't funny. I haven't laughed in the first 3 chapters. That means there's not going to be any more laughs.
Yeah, definitely. If they're not in the first 3 chapters, I'm sure that I laughed in the first couple of pages of reading a couple, so yeah.
Thank you.
Anyway, yeah. So
Yes, it's a true statement that you've put the com into the rom-com. So
yeah, I agree.
in case anyone's wondering if they're going to have that experience, you will.
Thank you. And
there's
it's
serious
funny
stuff in there as well. Like there's some stuff in there, yeah.
But that's also what's such a misconception, I think, about rom-com and romance in general. Like, just because you laugh or you're enjoying yourself and it's happy ending, it doesn't mean you can't explore serious themes.
Absolutely. And it's been funny because I've had so many people be like, I wasn't expecting that. And I was like, you obviously don't read a lot of romance then.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah, because I was like, I know so many romances that, they'll go into anxiety and mental health and, eating disorders, like, you've explored
sometimes more than actually general fiction necessarily, definitely more than probably crime or things like that,
Yeah. And like on every time I have an event, I always say to people, like, why can't we celebrate love stories just as much as crime stories? Because imagine how much better and how much nicer the world would be if we weren't just reading about murder all the time.
I know.
It does mystify me, actually, the proliferation of crime novels. I mean, I understand that it's a satisfying story structure because you're going to get your beginning, middle, and end. But romance will also give you that. But I keep thinking this is all very heavy and dark, and yes, I think we do need something that may have darkness in it, but which can actually offer us an experience where we leave feeling better than we did at the start.
Yeah, a hopeful feeling, because we know in the world sometimes it doesn't feel like there's much hope sometimes, so we need to have it on the page. I agree.
And it's also nice sometimes, like I do hate the term light and fluffy, because I think a better term is low angst. And as someone who feels really anxious,
I love that too, actually, low angst.
I for sometimes with crime, and I've been reading them at the moment, but I feel anxious the whole time. And, you don't, like, I go to bed and I don't have that, like, I feel tense. But at least when I read romance or, something that's more uplifting, then I'm not feeling anxious, because I have enough anxiety going on just like looking at the news or just, So I don't know why we have this dig at light and fluffy. What's so wrong with wanting to feel good when you read?
Exactly. 100%. Preach it, sister.
Really nothing, Molly. Really nothing. But so so bearing in mind what you've just told us about how you make things happen, right? So running the marathon, the blogging,
What's
becoming an
next?
enterprise. Thank you, Rachel. Yes, that's where I was going.
Oh, I thought you were going to ask some like writing kind of question. Like,
No, well,
I saw the hardest thing about writing fiction on your list and stuff, but no, you're asking what's next. Yeah, what's next?
Yeah, well, so it's so funny. Like, I don't have now those big goals because I got addicted to writing.
Yeah.
Like, people should not start unless they're willing to give up the next 5 years, 50 years of their
100%.
life.
I have written that in my keynote too.
Oh my God.
Basically say it is a bug and it's very hard to cure once you've caught it, whether or not you have immediate success or not, it's hard.
Yeah.
And we should also say that so no doubt you are working on a manuscript, but you also work with other authors because you are a virtual assistant and you're doing some copywriting. So you're doing several different types of writing, like me, like Rachael, and you started off with blogging. So I'm interested in how you became the virtual assistant, and also, excuse me, the sort of, I always think of the different sorts of writing as like a gear change. It's like I can almost feel myself grinding through the gears as I'm going from one form to another. So I'm interested in what your experience is.
Yeah.
It definitely is a gear change because when I get authors, when I get their copy for their website, I often change it because they don't know how to sell themselves and they're very humble, which, that's fantastic. But this is your opportunity. This is your platform. People have jumped off social media or wherever. You've got their attention and you've only got it for a few seconds before they might jump off again.
I love how you've got a humble brag page on your website.
You have to, because honestly, like, authors don't say enough like what they've achieved. They're very, so I'm always like, tell me about your awards, tell me about this, tell me about the great feedback you've had, trying to just like get that information out of them. Because copywriting is about getting like someone's attention like that, which is a really great skill to have for fiction. Because like you said, Rachel, like that first line is so important. So you apply the same principles, but in a different way. So with the VA, so it was funny because I heard an author on a podcast talk about how she needed a VA, but she didn't know what she needed one for. And I just went through her whole online presence and I wrote
it for everything.
Yeah. No, I literally listed all these things. I was like, because she had a book coming out. I was like, you haven't even said, it doesn't say it in your bio. It doesn't say it on your website. It doesn't say it here. I was like, you need someone to do all this stuff. And then I was like, hold on, you need me to do all this stuff. I know how to do that. And then so I just pimped myself basically.
Did it work?
Yeah. She was like, yeah, you're hired. And then after that, it just kind of built from word of mouth. So I don't actually really advertise it. It's just more people find out about it and they contact me. And I'm, usually booked out quite a few months in advance, which is great. But I love doing that stuff. Like I literally I could just tinker with my own website for hours or play on Canva. I don't find, a lot of authors, they don't want to do the social media. They don't want to do the newsletters. They don't want to do all that stuff. I want to do all that stuff like that. If I could procrastinate doing that stuff all day, I would probably prefer to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm mad for a bit of Canva. I think I'm on Canva every single day doing various things, so I understand.
Yeah, it's a fun world, and I think it's good to have those skills. So I don't actually do people's social media for them anymore. I actually do strategy with them because I'd rather teach someone how to do it because not every author can pay someone to do it ongoing. And, I actually used to be a teacher. That was my first sort of like full-time job. So I've always just had that at heart. Like, I want to teach people how to do this because they don't know what we know. Like, and basic things that I just think everyone knows. Like even some people still don't know how to put captions on a video. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you need captions because people are not listening with sound, but people don't know that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love teaching.
Would you ever consider, because as you said, not every author can afford to pay someone to do it on a regular basis. Would you consider, or have you already, not that I saw, but teaching a course, like actually doing an online course for authors specifically to whether it's just, it could be well behind a paywall, not readily accessible, but that's the sort of thing I'm saying this as a publisher now as well. It's something that I've recognized there is a great need for because publishers increasingly expect authors to know how to do social media. I keep saying it is a different skill that is not their core competency
Yeah.
and actually can have nothing at all to do with how well they write and what sort of stories they write.
Yeah.
Because partly it's about learning to be comfortable in front of a camera. It's about thinking about your readers differently. It's accepting that you need to have a relationship with readers or followers in order to make your social media work properly, and that can actually be fun. So yes, Holly, there you go. In case you have not already thought of making a course.
I have thought about it, but one of the things with social media is it's ever evolving. So by the time I probably finished that course, there'd be new things. So I do have a paid Substack for people who want those extra tips. And I also do those one-on-ones with people because I like to meet them where they're at. So one of the questions I'll ask is, are you comfortable with showing your face? And sometimes people aren't at the start. So I have to sort of work with them and say, we got to build these, got to do these little baby steps.
And you've been through the journey yourself. That's the other thing. Like, you understand.
And now I just rock up like, I'm not wearing makeup, I'm not wearing a bra, I don't care. But, but before that would have been terrifying. Like I would have made sure my hair was done and, I had and stuff. But now, like, I'm sure you're all the same, except Sophie, you always look gorgeous.
Sophie always looks amazing.
She does, doesn't she?
See, I've had, after starting doing this with Sophie, I was like, I investigated a filter for Zoom. So now this is problem when I hold anything up though, it like goes blurry because
I didn't even know you had a filter.
It's not working it. Yeah, no, I've got a filter that puts lipstick on and makes me look all so it's really good.
Need to match Sophie, but
I'm interested in adornment is why you'll always see me dress up, because I'm interested in adornment as human behavior as well, because adornment is common to all cultures, and I do think it has been denigrated in certain Western cultures as something that only girls and women do, and therefore it's lesser than. But actually, as I said, it's common to all cultures, and so I'm always quite interested in that piece of it. I never used to be, because I used to believe the whole I wouldn't do that if I was a serious person. But now it's fun. It's creative play.
It is. And like when I see your videos, like you just have this presence about you. Like I'm always looking like, I love her eyeshadow. Like I don't
I know.
eyeshadow.
Sophie's eyeshadow is always fantastic.
Yeah.
Or I never wear eyeshadow, maybe twice a year.
I feel like you need to do like a makeup video, you need to get ready with Soph type of thing.
You should get ready with Soph.
Well, I do look. When we are digressing here, but I will say I often will plan. It's part of the whole outfit, so it's basically whatever I'm wearing will determine what the eyeshadow colors are. And sometimes it actually starts with the eyeshadow. I'm like, what colors do I want to have on my face today? And then I'll go and find what I have in my wardrobe that will work with that. So it's a whole.
I love that. But the thing, and I know you said we were digressing, but we're actually not, because the thing is, people are interested not just in our books, but they're interested in our lives and other aspects about us. So, and I find that content actually works better than when you're trying to, say, promote your book.
Definitely.
Because people connect with people. They're not connecting with a product.
It's about connection. I think that is what a few people unfortunately don't recognize. They're all about the promo.
Yeah.
We said a lot of us are scared of doing that, and there's a fine line, but then there's some people who are all about, I'm going to do more on social media. I've heard this from a couple of people. Like, I'm going to do more on social media because I've been told I need to, or because I need to get myself, and I think that's the wrong attitude for why you want to be on social media. I think you want to be on there to connect with people,
to be social
connection. And so, and that to
be social,
which is that, whichever way you've got, like that influences how what you put on there. And you can tell the difference. As a reader, I can tell this author who's just here because they think they need to be here because they need to sell more books, as opposed to someone who is there genuinely one connection with book people.
It's like, so I talk about how that's like the equivalent of going to a party. Like you've gone to the party, like, well, I'm here, but if you stand in the corner and cross your arms, no one wants to approach you.
Yeah.
And you can feel that.
That's beautifully put, actually. Yes.
You can feel that energy on social media. So don't go there going, I have to promote my book. Go there and be like, I'm going to make friends.
Yeah.
I'm going to have fun. Like I'm going to
And you do make friends, right? Like so many people I've met through the, writers and some readers, book reviewers, because, you've connected over something online.
Well,
Yeah.
this whole podcast exists because I sent Rach a DM after
Yeah.
we had done an interview at a separate podcast I was doing, but this was a DM to her, and I was just thought I'd try. I was like, hey, like we didn't really know each other, but you want to do a podcast together.
And I'm so glad she did, because now we're good friends, and it's just changed. You know,
Exactly.
so yeah. Now have you got anything else though, if you want to ask Holly, before
this
we
has been,
get Holly to ask us?
as an aside, this has been fascinating, Holly, and
Yeah.
I could ask you so many more questions, but you did say you had some questions for us, so we want to allow time for that.
Yeah, no, that's okay. All right. So I have 3. So my first one, and I think, Sophie, you're probably going to know maybe a little bit more of the behind the scenes of this decision.
Oh, she knows a bit more about most
I mean, she knows a lot of things. I know. That's fantastic. I love that. Okay. So I've noticed with books that are being published now, some of them go, so mine is called, I think it's called trade
paperback or a C format, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but there's also other ones coming out that are a different size, but they come out straight away as the smaller size.
I know
Romance novels.
Romance novels. Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, is it just romance novels? And also, why and what's the decision behind them coming out as a smaller size first?
So I believe I have actually, this is a great question. Because there hasn't been too much romance published within Australia at first as Australian romance writers of the sort that we're seeing now, like the post Book Talk. So I published Tierney Page, who is known as Tierney Reads, on Book Talk and on Instagram. She's got a massive platform, particularly on Book Talk, but a large one on Instagram as well. So she had self-published her first novel, The Other Brother, and we have now republished it, and we'll publish 2 more of the series. And they came out as a B format first, and that's because, so there was not even a question that it was going to be that. I think it's partly because, in large part because the books we're receiving from our UK companies, because the company I work for also distributes from the UK, they're B formats. Now, I'm not sure exactly why they started in B. I think or suspect price point was something to do with it. So romance readers who are used to, if we think that, you know, the Mills and Boon, Harlequin Mills and Boon novels,
It's always been smaller
and also like really cheap. You could compare with other sorts of books. You could go to I remember being in a Target once and seeing this Mills and Boon display and thinking, oh, you could buy, if it was medical romance and there were 5 novels,
you buy the whole lot.
You could buy the 5 medical romance novels for the same price as one trade paperback.
And I think that's the thing. Romance readers have always been voracious. And they often get for years, they haven't been necessarily getting their books in shops in Australia because, like, we just didn't have the romance content that they had. And I think, like, with TikTok, definitely the books that the TikTok people are, you know, raving about, most of them were coming from the US or the UK in the B format already. And so I have seen a couple of Australian publishers. Interesting, Sophie, yours, obviously Tierney was big on TikTok anyway, so she already had that premise. But I have seen a couple of Australian publishers now putting their romance novels straight into the smaller format.
But also, Holly, I will say, because this is, speaking as a publisher now, yes, this is a rom-com, but could appeal to general fiction readers.
Yeah.
So in terms of where a retailer would expect to put it, and this is also part of the consideration, a retailer would look at that and think, I can shelve it in general fiction and I can shelve it in romance, because they'll often have different categories. And as a former bookseller, I know that you know, we might shelve things in a couple of places if we think they belong in a couple of places. So from a retail point of view, this makes sense to put it out in the C format and signify that it's not necessarily strictly for a romance readership. And also because the romance reader who would buy the B format might expect the story to go a certain way or to have certain elements in, and yours may not have those, which is a great thing. But it's just, okay, which sort of reader is it likely to be, and where will they expect to find it, and how will they expect it to look?
I actually wonder if it's a disservice actually in Australia at this point, not for someone like Tierney, because I feel like she's a different kettle of fish, because she's already got a huge, massive presence online, and they're the type. But I have seen a couple of Australian romance authors be put out in the B format, and you're always sort of in a different part of the supermarket, not the supermarket, the department store. Also, you're less likely to be put on like front of shelves in like dim. You're not going to get that kind of Dimmicks big QBD positioning that you might get, because so I think we're not quite there yet that But I love the B format size personally myself. I would much
more
rather
portable.
read it. It's great in your bag. But yeah, it is an interesting question. I think it's a strategic move at the moment, deciding where the book will go.
And that actually leads nicely into my next question, because I did my bookstore visit day the other day, like the official one.
Yeah.
And so I noticed, that there was one that was the trade size, and their book, so mine was already out for a month, so it's going to, be shelved, whatever. It's fine. But there were 2 romances that came out that day, and one was in the new releases, and the other one I had to go look for, and it was in the romance section, and it was the smaller one. So I was like, was it because of that, or was there other things involved? But I was also wondering, do all books get put out like new release? Obviously, not all new releases get put out on the new release. And what is the decision that makes that? And it was so interesting that you said, like, with this, it's even the cover, I think itself, because there's only a female on it and not two, the male female character. A lot of the booksellers, when I said to them, well, now that it's no longer a new release and you've got new ones in, where are you going to put it? And a lot of them did say Australian fiction or general fiction. And I was like, really? That's interesting. Why? And they said, well, the ones who had read it said they felt there was general themes, that it went beyond romance. And I was like, okay, I love that you know that. But the others, I think it was literally the cover that they, in their minds, didn't think it was a romance. And I was like, oh,
I can't speak for Dimmicks or the Independents, but I can speak for QBD because I worked there for a little bit. And I'm just actually looking up your book now to see what it's categorized as on Amazon. Very interesting.
Amazon make up their own categories.
Yeah, I know they do. But
they?
I was just curious. But QBD will have got it from, like, they will
metadata.
Metadata. And everyone in the shop, like whatever shop you go to, it should be shelved in the same place because they have very strict stuff. So it's interesting. I've seen both my books, like my romance novels, in both general fiction and romance, and then I've seen my general fiction in romance because people think I'm a romance. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But Sophie, you probably can speak. I don't know how much you can speak to the fact that a lot of shelf space is bought, right?
Yes. So this is to do. Also, it can be things like, is the book going to be in the catalogue that month? So we've got Father's Day coming up at the time we're speaking, and there are Father's Day catalogues. And so if a book is in the Father's Day catalogue, just say it's Big W, then Big W is going to put those books prominently displayed because they want people to look at the catalogue and come and find the book easily. And Big W is really good at having consistent displays throughout their stores. So whatever you're seeing as the new release display is going to be the same, regardless of which Big W you're in. So that is down to the relationship between the publisher and the retailer, and there are all sorts of considerations, and this also factors into time of year when we want books to be published, because we might think, okay, well, we have this book coming out at, just say June. We've got this book coming out in June, and Holly's new book is coming out. We don't actually want Holly's book out in that month because we would like to give them both the same opportunity, and they can't be competing with each other. And then, of course, you don't know what your competitors are doing. So it could be that they might have something out in that month as well, but you want the books that are on your list to have the best possible run in terms of shelf placement, things like that. Now, when it comes to the independents, they make up their own minds. So there can be some things. The Australian Booksellers Association has its own book buying group, and they will have their decisions in relation to catalogues. But as someone who worked in an indie bookshop for quite a few years, we just did what we wanted. Like, we just wanted, I like that book. And also the hand selling that goes on is another part of it.
Yes.
It could be one bookshop where, say, a staff members loved a particular book and they just hand sell a lot. Like when I was working in Vancouver years ago in Vancouver Kids Books, and there were so many parents who would come in and say, I don't want my son to read Goosebumps anymore. I was hand selling Morris Gleitzman and Paul Jennings. So even though I was in Canada, I was selling those books, and accordingly, the numbers of Paul Jennings and Morris Gleitzman books were going up. And his publisher in Canada noticed.
You've got a good bookseller. Yeah, that's waiting to bribe all the local booksellers.
I took them Snickers bars and little candy when I went and they all wanted it. But it was so funny because I met a bookseller. You're so right. I met a bookseller and she goes, "You had a different title for this." And I said, "Yes." And she goes, "I read your manuscript in a competition."
Oh, wow.
And she said it was like 200 plus manuscripts. She goes, "I placed it fourth. I did not place in this competition, so I never knew." But she's like, "I placed it fourth. I remembered it when I flicked it open when it came in store."
Gosh, that's so
and
cool.
I personally sold 12 copies today. And I was like, I love you. Like,
that is what you need. You need like some great booksellers behind you. The other thing I think I should say is at the moment, I was talking about this, I don't even know who, I'll be another publisher, about how like at the moment it is really hard for Australian fiction in the departments, in the DDS stores, because of the, you know, the mammoth amount that's romance and sort of romantasy and stuff that's coming through from overseas. So I think even more important getting local booksellers on your side, because I mean Kmart and Target, I'd say as well, they take such a tiny amount of books now, Derek, Sophie, like that's like
they do. The number of titles they take, they might take quantity, but the number of titles more.
So, you know, you're not guaranteed, and it's not that the publisher is not trying to push your book to that. And I think that's one of the things that I've seen over the years is a lot of new writers will think, oh, my publisher's not working hard for me. They're not attempting to get publicity for me. They're not, you know, trying to get me in bookshops. And the thing is, you know, what they're actually doing is probably a lot.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean, sadly, that they're going to get the good answers. So, yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I've put some stuff on TikTok recently where I've been talking about how Australian writers, if they want to be published in Australia, should be reading Australian published books, and the amount of pushback, shall we say. And it's interesting because it's made me realize how skewed the perspective is on what's coming from the Northern Hemisphere. So I refer to it as cultural imperialism from the Northern Hemisphere, and I refer to it in relation to music as well. And I don't see this resistance in music so much. I think with music, because I'm a country music specialist, it's actually to do with what radio is programming, and people don't even hear the Australian music. But Australian readers know there are Australian books out there, and their perception. So some of the comments have been things like, "Oh, well, you know, the Australian books they're not all up to standard. Like they're not all great." And I'm thinking, but not all American books are either. You're just seeing the ones that aren't. Like, this is the thing.
That's so true.
So their perception is that everything that's coming from overseas is everything that's coming out. By no means is it everything. Multinational publisher, there are plenty of books on the overseas list that do not make it. So we are seeing everything by Australian writers. Some of it won't be to your taste, listeners / viewers, and it won't be of the same standard as other things. That's what happens when you're in your own territory and reading what's coming out. Same applies to New Zealand and Canada and all those sorts of things. But it was the judgment. It was this whole kind of finger wagging thing. And there was one comment that said, "Well, I'm reading Patrick White. He's our only Nobel Prize winner." And I was thinking, if that's the criterion, like, so
this person was on TikTok.
I'm reading Voss because Patrick White's our only Nobel Prize winner, and that's basically saying that's
they're missing out, aren't they?
Exactly.
You know.
But it is hard because then our industry is suffering because of the cultural
imperialism from the north. Yes.
So it's a thing. Anyway,
and also look, I have to say, right, the people who listen / watch this podcast, I think are interested.
I think they're interested, and they know that the quality is outstanding. So that's good.
And thank you to readers who are listening or watching, and we do very much appreciate that you're aware of it. That was more just a little rant in general.
And also can explain why it's hard to get Australian fiction in some stores at the moment, you know, and why all the books that are published in Australia are not necessarily going to get in certain stores.
You're competing with.
The cultural cringe still exists as well. Some of the comments were about, well, Australia is boring, and because it's just not as good as other countries. And I thought, well,
tell them to move to a different country.
Well, didn't this go out in the 70s and 80s? Like, anyway.
Well, it's so interesting because I had comments previously about my writing being too Australian, sounding too Australian. But it's funny because the reviews from readers who have enjoyed it have said that's what they've really liked about it. Like someone said, you know, you know, devour this with a packet of Tim Tams in hand.
I love that.
And I was like, oh, I really like that, because I was worried about that, because I had, you know, when you get a feedback, like a piece of feedback, and it just sticks
It
with
sticks
you.
in your head.
But I was also like, well, this is how we speak. This is how,
I
like, what
know.
we say. Like,
And
it's an Australian book. Like, it's going to sound
two
Australian.
things. Yeah, there's two things I think there. It's like, you're never going to please everyone,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Absolutely not. But also, in the end, I strongly believe, you know, that we shouldn't be writing because someone is like, we think our book will do better if we set it in America, or we think our book will do better
Yeah.
if this, because there's no guarantees that it will. So in the
Mm.
end, follow your heart, write the book that you want to write, and that's all you can do.
Well, and also the whole too Australian, it sounds too Australian thing is interesting, because what's the definition of that? Because you could have because your book is not of the Flame and Drongo.
No, it's not.
I mean, it's not like marketed as rural, which they might think is too Australian.
So
out
I'm
there in
really,
the bush.
I just actually think some Australians, I do put it back to the cultural cringe. I think some Australian readers do think that anything set in Australia is cringy.
Yes.
It's really sad.
That is sad, but it's a factor. But if you said to them, okay, well, what if Americans said that about America? They'd probably think that was outrageous that America.
Yeah, exactly. They wouldn't say that.
Did you have one more question? Am I right?
Yeah, I do. Okay. So I heard from a little birdie that when my book went to acquisitions, it was sent to a bookstagrammer to read the opening chapters to get their opinion of, would you read more? And then I heard from another author.
Just one bookstagrammer?
Well, I don't know. I only heard of one. And then I heard from another author from a different publishing house. And she said hers had also gone to a bookstagrammer. She'd heard the same thing. So now I'm wondering, is this a thing? Do you know, Sophie?
Well, for us, like I would never send anything out of house before it had been acquired.
Look, I don't know if this is true, but that was what I had heard, and it honestly terrified me. But I was also like, is it a romance thing too? Because they would have strong opinions about what they would and wouldn't read.
But again, some will like it, some won't.
Yeah, a while ago, it was not uncommon to have readers who were not within the company that were paid externally to read, and so that was a thing. And
I guess the same thing,
yeah.
But those readers probably wouldn't have been necessarily people who would later maybe review it, which is what a bookstagrammer would do. So that's for me, that's where the rub's coming in there. It's like, if it's a bookstagrammer, then that's potentially someone who might later review the book that you're asking them to read and say whether it's appropriate to acquire. So, but look, we have at where I work at Asha, we have some younger members of staff in particular who are passionate about romance. So if I'm looking to acquire a romance title, I will go to them. It could be that the publishing companies concerned don't have staff who the genre that much, and so they're looking to go outside. I personally wouldn't do it, but that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just
Well, you said it used to happen, not necessarily bookstagram, but
it used to happen that like I used to when I was freelancing a bit years ago. I was reading manuscripts to give opinions pre-acquisition, but that was like a freelance, not like being a freelance editor, but it was actually a freelance reader, and so that might be the arrangement.
Could it also be that the publisher or publishers have happened, like a lot of them are on Insta too, and have formed a connection with a reviewer on Instagram, and so like something and then ask kind of a friend for the opinion.
It could well have been.
Well, it could also be, I mean, they're trying to validate whether it's going to hold up. Like if it's not going to hold up with the people who are judging it, essentially.
And maybe they need that to get across acquisition.
I put it, well, maybe, I don't know. I like when I found that out, I was like, oh my goodness, I did not know this. And then when I found out that it happened at other places, I was like, but it was the person, so they did tell me the person it was. I wasn't following them and they weren't following me. So if my name was on the thing, it wasn't a relationship that I had with that person.
They may have sent the book without, like, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, without the name.
I'm guessing they would, because otherwise it could get a little bit dodgy.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if this is true, but it was just
Sophie. I don't necessarily expect her to show, people outside of her publishing company. So I'm guessing it would take off the names and any identifying information, but it's also a bit risky in these day and age. It's a whole other discussion.
I'm hoping very much that the manuscript was watermarked. Let's just say that.
Well, look, it got over the line. They obviously liked it.
Yeah,
Or,
exactly.
you
So
know,
you're happy, like it worked.
thank
It
goodness,
worked.
you know.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to have to stand up to critics at some point.
That's
So
true.
it's better, you know, that it does get over the line at that point, because if it didn't, if they literally didn't feel like this was something they could connect with, you kind of
Yeah.
would rather that it didn't get pushed
Yeah, I know.
out, because
That's
then you have to face all those people who probably feel the same.
And that's a really interesting point too. I think we're so we want to get published, right? You want that first book out there and that, but you do only have one first book,
Yes.
right? I always think, you've got basically one or two. This is a tough talk in the industry, but you've got one or two books. I was about to say in Australia, but even in America, I know so many people that think they've made it because they got an American deal, and they haven't made it because they got an American deal, because like I was saying, right? I've had two books out in America, both sold terribly. So, you don't get more, you don't get more. And so that's the thing. You really do want to go out with the absolute best. I mean, one that always as a published author, right? We don't want to put anything out that's, that we are at least not, okay to go out. You want to try and put your best out there. But those first books are really, really serious. Because I always think, if you've got an author you love, you're going to give them a book or two, right?
Yes.
But if it's a totally new book, and you might not read them ever again.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think you're right. I think the first two books, I think they'll forgive the third. I've heard that the third can be forgivable, but then you have to follow up with a really good
But it's
fourth
also,
if you
I'm
did.
talking about sales in the first two books, sadly, and the industry, you basically, and Sophie, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I see it like most people have two books. If that doesn't really go well, it's very hard to get the third over the line. No, it's okay. I'm sorry to scare you. I'm already thinking of books amazingly. I can
Sometimes there's some reinvention that goes on,
you see
so
that too,
you can shift genres if the first two haven't quite done what you hope. But this is when it comes down to the publisher's concerned, the writer's concerned, the relationships people have, and this is what it is. It is an industry of relationships, as a lot of creative industries are. But you might say there's a novelist who the publisher believes in, the publisher and the company they work for really believes in. Maybe the first two books haven't quite done what they hoped. Now, that's not always the author's fault. That's the other part.
Yeah, 100%.
We can think, the author, the book wasn't quite good enough. It can actually just be because maybe it came out in a month where there were three titles by brand authors and it didn't get the shelf space it deserved.
That's so true. Yeah, even though I was saying you want your best book out there, the majority of people that I've seen this happen to, it's nothing to do with the book.
Yeah, and it can also just be they misfired on the cover. Like that can happen. The publishers say, well, here's the cover we insist on, and the cover didn't work. And so it's not the author's fault, but then it's this whole thing of the relationship between author and publisher, where the publisher might think, you know what, they're a terrific writer. We really believe in them and we're going to give them we want to give them another shot because we want to keep working with them because they've been great to work with. This is a big factor with, I think, any industry where the margins are slim. It's like if people aren't making huge amounts of money, then you want to be great to work with, and you would say the talent and the great to work with, which is just being professional. It doesn't mean you have to be
and take everything. Yeah, they're told. Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. So, and then I think, well, let's actually really look at what they're writing and how we position them, and maybe if they want to write another genre and that's in them anyway, maybe we can shift to another genre.
Yes. And you see that, don't you? Yeah. I don't want to be all doom and gloom because, like, I'm not trying to be, but I was saying, like, that's what you can see the difference between people, right, who have had that happen to them and just gone, okay. And then other people happen, like it hasn't worked. The first couple of books haven't exactly worked. And they're like, well, no, I still want this. And I'm going to, put my all. And most of those people survive in some format. We are lucky that there's so many different ways. But I think I just the reason I sort of honed in on that is because I think it's very important not to just rush thinking, oh, well, I've written a book. It's brilliant and wonderful. Like if you're not 100% behind it, then that's why, I thought what you did was really good, thinking that you knew which one your first book.
That's amazing, actually. A lot of people would have just taken that feedback from the agents, thought, oh yes, I will revise that manuscript and submit that. But you did what I often counsel writers to do, which is you listened to how you felt about it. You didn't feel that was the right manuscript, and you were correct because it wasn't the one that ended up being published. So that's so important, and it can be that we really don't want to listen to those feelings that the brain will go, oh no, do that. This is the manuscript I've been working on, even though it's my apprentice manuscript, I want to put it through. So So yeah, you did everything right there. And the other thing I'm noticing from a publishing point of view, and the things I think about as well, is that with audiobooks, and a lot of books are coming out on audio, books have a different lifespan now. So we have our retail window for print, but ebook and audiobook live on. They don't require shelf space. And so we've seen that. Book Talk is the classic example.
Yeah, where books come back.
Everyone by surprise was that publishers did not have stock of a lot of the books that took off because they were old and had them in
Have
print.
you heard about Cassandra at the Wedding?
No.
That's apparently a book on Book Talk that I've actually ordered it, like, that took off, and it was printed in, like, hang on, I've got to have a look it up. But yeah, like, so that's very true. Our industry is so different these days, and you know, we're also, as authors, you know, you can take control of a book if it doesn't go well in normal publishing, you know, or not normal publishing. Excuse my French, don't cancel me. Everyone.
Traditional.
You know, I've got plenty of people who are, and yeah, but like, so there are a lot of options these days. But you know, this industry has never been easy, I guess that's the thing. But I think, yeah, what I was trying to say is I really admire what you did, and I think it's the right thing. I think it's so easy to go, nah, I'm just gonna put it out there because, you know, I can.
And this is a really strong book. So for anyone, because I know, like, being a first-time novelist, it's a tender time. Obviously, Rachel and I have both been first-time novelists, and partly the tenderness can be because readers aren't sure who you are and whether they can trust you, and that's a big part of it. This is a very assured piece of work, so readers can trust your skill with this and take to the characters, get into the story, have an experience, and come to the end feeling better than they did at the start.
Thank you.
And what's better?
I was going to say, the interesting thing about what you said is, like, yeah, our books both came out. Well, my first book came out in 2000, and my first print 2012. Very different industry than it is now, right? I didn't have social media to help me, but also I didn't have a lot of the competition that social media has brought. So, like, there's always pros and cons of
absolutely.
You know, the industry is always going to be
it's ever evolving
in some ways, and you know,
easier
as before in other ways.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, with social media, it's that, you know, double-edged sword of, you can get in front of a large audience, but you've also got to get in, like, everyone else other way.
Yeah, exactly. No, in a way,
you know,
you
to stand out. Which
and also, there's such a large audience that finding your actual audience is the hard part, you know.
To find your people.
Yeah.
I actually have one more question that's come to me, if it's okay that I ask.
Sure,
I just figured, because I'm part of the debut crew, and
I love that, by the way. I love that that's happened in the last couple of years. Yeah.
It's amazing. So we have
just quickly explain it.
Yeah. So the debut crew authors who are being published, Australian authors who are being published for the first time. So we're part of a group. So we're part of a 2025 group. There's a 2024 group. There's already a 2026 group. So we meet on Discord, which is an app, you know, similar to like a Facebook group, but modern. And so it's a really great place where we have different topics and we can all post stuff there and ask questions and lean on each other for support. But there's a lot of transparency, which I think is really good, but also a bad thing as well, because you're seeing other people get amazing things and you're not getting them, or the opposite, you know what I mean? So, but it does open your eyes to this sort of behind the scenes that I don't think I would have had without this group.
Yeah, I didn't have any behind the scenes stuff really when I first started.
Yeah. So it's really good to have that support, and I've made really great friendships through that. And we're you know, celebrating and promoting each other as well. So every month I put on Instagram, I posted the first day of the month of all those new releases for that month. And there's been, like, you know, there's a bookstagrammer, she's trying to read every debut novel this year. And it's amazing. So, because I do a visual of all of them as we add to it every month. And so you can literally tick them off and see, or go into a shop and be like, I want to support a debut author. I want to discover a new voice.
Fabulous.
Yeah, so it's really great. So I thought on behalf of them, I would ask a question, because a lot of them, like, I'm still in the hype of my books come out and I'm very excited, but a lot of them, you know, their book has come out.
Been out a few months.
It's been out a few months. Now what? Like, so what, I don't even know what the question is really, but more like, you know, what do you do after that sort of excitement and everything has died down? How do you how do you continue the lifespan of your book? And just how do you deal from going on this like massive high to a crash? Because a lot of people are crashing now.
That's a really good question. I think it's very understandable. Yeah. Because also a lot of people just think, you know, I think we all have high expectations, right? Higher probably than the Australian industry actually realistically will ever give you unless you are Trent Dalton or, you know.
Well,
and
he worked for the Australian. Like, I also
yeah,
think it's
I
really
know, that's
important
true.
to make the point
Yeah.
that when his first novel came out, he was working for the Australian, and that is News Corporation.
Yeah.
News Corporation has
behind.
many publications.
Yeah. And he already had a bit of, but there's other people too I could have said. But like, I think, like, I had a friend a few years ago and she was like, her debut book, she told me she thought she'd sell 50,000 copies. And
Oh,
Right. And see,
so
where do
she
these numbers come from? That's the
super
other thing.
disappointed, right?
Yeah.
So I
Like,
think a lot is probably realistic. You know, but anyway, Sophie, you were going to say something.
I was going to say, like, so the managing of the expectations is a huge,
yeah.
but of course, once you set yourself the expectation, then you may be heading for a crash, because it is also always relative, and that's why I mentioned the audiobook thing as well, because the numbers as a publisher, the numbers I have published mainly nonfiction to date. I am picking up some fiction now, but the way I look at the success of the books I publish, including nonfiction, is now quite different, because I'm thinking, all right, we used to have the 3-month sale or return window for print. And now I'm saying to my colleagues that we can't start, and all publishing companies would be the same, that that's what they're looking at in terms of measuring a book, or what they used to look at. And now I keep saying, and I have colleagues who are thinking the same way, the life of this book is longer. Whenever there's an ebook or an audiobook, there's the possibility that this could go on and on and on. And then it's on us as publishers and also on the authors to think about, how do we keep talking to people about those stories. Obviously, well, part of this as well is that traditional media is disappearing rapidly. This is well known. There are Substack posts about it from the United States and other places, where it's like traditional media burst that you get when a book first comes out is just not going to happen for most novelists in particular, because the hooks are difficult for traditional media. So therefore, it's on social media, and a lot of the promotion is on the authors. We are not being trained in it. And this is back to my point about the course and teaching other people, and Holly, you teaching authors to do that is so valuable with your clients. So then I think this is partly why this is actually a bigger existential question, particularly in a small market like Australia, where we have the cultural imperialism from the north. This is about a movement. I think this is partly what Rachael and I are doing. It's partly this debut crew. It's, part of the reason, big part of the reason why Rachael and I decided to start covering new releases is because of the lack of discoverability for Australian writers in this culture. It's why I do it on the country music side of my life as well. So I think what I consider is necessary is actually that we, as writers, work together, as you're doing in the debut crew, but just more broadly, and start to think about those broader opportunities to keep talking to the public about what we're doing, because these are stories that people may want. And it's not about how many copies do I sell. It's actually acknowledging that we are creating stories that might be useful, might be a break for someone. They might be just entertainment, which is my favorite thing to do, is like writing entertainment. It might actually reassure someone that they're not alone. The role of the storyteller in the culture is really, really important. In any culture is really, really important. So I do think we're in a moment now where we have some tools available to us to keep talking about our stories. We need to have the belief that the stories are valuable and needed. So there is that lingering cultural cringe. It's married with the tall poppy syndrome, and we have the cultural imperialism from the north. This trifecta is really damaging for Australian writers and New Zealand writers, and I think Canadians as well, probably. But it's that sense of we're having all these other stories coming in, and we're just trying to actually connect with readers who we know will like it. The publishing companies have made the decision to publish the book, so they believe people will like it. It's just trying to get through at a time when, as you said, Holly, like the reason why you can't make a course probably is because things are changing so much. So I think it's about us talking to each other and actually saying, okay, and now I'm sitting here and I realize people are going to hear this, but I'm thinking out loud, which is essentially, what is the movement? Like, what is the movement we can all participate in? And competition is great, and we should all be competitive with each other because that's healthy. But we should be also competitive for each other against
the rest of the world.
So like, what is the movement here? Like,
well, I do like that we've got the Aussie August that
Yeah.
people are doing at the moment, and I think that's amazing. Like, more people are showing all these books from Australian authors, like, and people are committing to just reading Australian authors for August. And displaying
good.
that. I think that's such a great movement. So I'm
Yeah.
really happy about that. And that my book came out just before.
Yeah.
And so
Good
your book came
timing.
out
Good
perfect
timing.
time.
I don't, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Sophie, you too. Yeah. There's other two things I thought of then. One is that it's good to know that you're not alone. Like, and you
Yes.
have got that with your debut crew, right? I think, I've been to conferences over the years and stuff, and people share stories and stuff, and then as soon as someone shared something that's happened to them, other people come out and go, "Oh, that happened to me too." And so
Yes.
often people think, "Oh, something's happened to me with my book, or some disappointment or whatever. I'm the only one it's ever happened to," and there's shame and all this different stuff. Whereas I think
Yes.
talking about the whole industry and things you've experienced, good and bad, and nobody's kind of alone, I think, in any situation that's happened in publishing, because there's always someone who's experienced it too, right?
Yes.
But the other thing I would say, and it's interesting because I've not contradicting myself, I'm not, but I'm saying, there, because before I said, oh, you've got like one or two books kind of thing, really, if we're talking tough. But the other thing is, are you looking at your book as a one book, or are you looking at a career, right? And so if you're looking at one book, you're putting all that effort and hoping that one kind of goes well and stuff, and if it doesn't, or like, what can I do more to make that one sell? But if you, like, I've been doing this now for, my maths is not terrible, I think I got published in 2012. Where are we? So almost 14 years.
Yeah.
You know, no one of my books I can pinpoint necessarily as being the one.
As the turning point.
Yeah, like I mean, I have had some highs and different stuff, but I've consistently put out books that, and I've kept my eye ahead rather than behind, if that makes sense. So rather than, of course, I'm focusing on the book that I'm going to put out, and when I'm doing promotion and stuff, but I'm already moved on from that book, and I think that is probably a way to, that book is out now. Who was recently, we're actually having her on the podcast, but I went to a launch of someone who had their third book out. And she was like, this book, I feel so much more, and she struggled. She wasn't sure she'd get third contract for various reasons or whatever, right? But she's like, now I know that whatever I've put into my book, it's out of my hands now. I'm just going to kind of enjoy that I have done this thing. And that is hard when we bring money into it and people wanting a career out of this, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, I need to have a certain amount to be able to get what I want. But I think we should focus on looking forward rather than, worrying too much about what's been and what's happened. Yes, we can keep promoting that book and sharing it, but having another book out will get those sales. Like, I get really well, and I'm get good from PLR now, and I'm sure you do too, Sophie. Not because I've written one book, but that's public lending, all right, but because I have a backlist of like 20 books. And so that's what I would think. Two things: you're not alone, but also don't look behind, look forward. You want to make a career out of this? Keep going.
Well, I'm fond of talking about the river, stepping into the river of creativity. You flow down the river, you are not trying to row back up it. Ever.
Yeah,
I love that.
That's too hard. Like, it's
Sophie always says what I'm trying to say, like, succinctly in one line.
She does. She just comes up with this beautiful, metaphor.
Oh no, that's why she writes more succinct books than me.
This actually comes from just teaching yoga and having to think of it in the moment. But it's also the fact that what you're talking about, Rach, with the backlist, that is actually the cascade coming down the river as well. So so if you are stepping into the river of creativity, the backlist of you is essentially the cascades that keep coming and swelling the river so that you're going further down. So we can look back and have recriminations, but
now I'm thinking, because your backlist is important too, right? Especially when you hear indie authors talk about that they're constantly reinventing their backlist, putting new covers on, which we can't do as much in traditional publishing. But because it sounds like this is why if I wrote a craft book, it would be called It Depends, because like my answer depends on so many things. Part of me is like, just look ahead to the next book, obviously, and to forget about the backlist. But then, of course, I'm wanting people to still pick them up. So there's we should be also reminding people that they're there at regular things as well. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. But
look, Holly, we've been talking with you.
Yeah, we should probably wrap this up.
It's been so long that it's gone dark in my room because I was only
we've got to record another podcast straight after.
Oh,
no, it's been really good. Like, I thank you for your questions, because that was the whole point really originally of this Dear Rach and Soph, to unpack the questions that people
Well, I
have.
was like, if
about
I've got
the
them,
history.
I'm going to ask
Yeah.
the questions
love
while
it.
I'm
No,
here.
thank
So thank
you.
you so much for being
Well,
so
and-
generous with your answers. I
Oh,
appreciate that. And
anytime.
honest too. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I will also say, if you wanted to get, I'm making a decision for Rach here about what can be on the podcast. But if you wanted to have a debut crew episode, if you want to come back and bring some of the debut crew with
that
you,
would be awesome. Actually,
Okay.
chat about
actually
what
do
it's
like
like
the
to be a debut author.
How many do you want? I will bring the people.
well, I reckon. Well, we'll liaise. Holly,
Okay, we'll liaise.
Debut
That's
crew.
a good idea.
Ask me anything, David.
Yes. Okay, fantastic. All right.
So having sorted that, we're going to leave you to your evening, and I'll put us on pause and we'll say goodbye. But
All right. Thank you so
officially,
much.
thanks for being here. Rach, this is a quick outro because that was quite a long episode, and perhaps people have decided that they would like to go on and do other things with their time. But I love talking to Holly. That was so interesting.
Oh, it's so good. They can always break it up. I break up long podcasts or even shorter podcasts, you know, like do a bit of walk the dog, listen a bit for dinner, well, not dinner. I don't like listen to podcasts at the table with my family, but you know, while I'm making dinner. Anyway, no, that was really good. Holly was fantastic, and I can't wait to go and finish the rest of her book. What did I miss?
And we will have her back, as mentioned, with the debut crew. We're going to organise that, and I think that'll be a really interesting for us to talk to them as well. So, listeners/viewers, thanks for being with us, and thank you, Rach, for being you.
Thank you, Soph, for being you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.